Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Kelvin, and this is the Museum of Crime. Our case today involves one of the most ruthless, cold-blooded killers ever to swell the ranks of the criminal classes. His name? Vincent Coll. And his story? Well, his story is nothing short of unbelievable, and although it may come across like fiction, I assure you it is all, unfortunately, very true. Shall we begin? Let's take a close look at our perp stats, and then we'll tell the story. Born in Ireland in 1908, Vincent Coll arrived in New York a year later when his family emigrated to the U.S. Little is known of Coll's early years, save that he grew up in the Bronx and was ill-educated. Vincent Coll passed through a number of Catholic reform schools until, in his teens, he joined the Gopher Street gang and started a life of petty crime. As time passed, Vincent was noticed by none other than Dutch Schultz. Dutch brought Vincent and his brother Peter into the organization. Dutch soon noticed Vincent's moral flexibility and moved him up as an enforcer. Schultz's empire grew quickly, and so did Vincent Coll's position in it. The now 19-year-old assassin was well known for enjoying his work, and as his reputation grew, so did the desire to have a bigger piece of the action. As part of his duties, Vincent Coll made the rounds of the speakeasies, pushing Dutch Schultz's bootleg booze. One proprietor, Anthony Borello, refused to play ball. So, Coll shot him. Cold blood right there. And one of his chorus girls, a teenager by the name of Mary Smith. Coll was nabbed for the killings, but the charges were quickly dropped with the aid of some grease from the Dutchman, although Dutch was not well pleased with Coll after this. Their relationship was further strained when Vincent Coll held up a dairy in the Bronx, netting $17,000 and a crap ton of wrath from Dutch Schultz. Rather than keeping the Dutchman's good graces, Coll demanded an equal piece of the action in Schultz's organization. And that didn't sit well with Dutch Schultz. So Coll went off and formed his own gang, including his brother Peter, and a string of small-time hoods like Pasquale Pazzi del Greco, Dominic Odierno, and Frank Gordano. The Coll gang then set out to damage Dutch Schultz's operation by breaking into one of his garages and destroying 10 trucks that Schultz used to transport his illegal booze, and over 100 vending machines. Needless to say, this really pissed the Dutchman off, and on May 30th, 1931, Schultz sent a clear message to Vincent Coll. Peter Coll was kidnapped by some of Dutch's boys and unceremoniously shot to death on a street in Harlem. The shooting war was on, and Coll and his gang quickly racked up 20 of Dutch Schultz's men on their kill list. It was then that Vincent Coll hit upon a grand scheme to make some fast cash and strengthen his gang. He began kidnapping mobsters and holding them to ransom. One of Coll's most prominent pulls was George Big Frenchy Demange, one of Oni Madden's lieutenants. Big Frenchy was released less than a day after he was nabbed, and the ransom was paid. Vincent Coll's racket was going great, until he picked the wrong mug to lay the snatch on. It's July 28, 1931, and one of Dutch Schultz's torpedoes, Joey Rao, and his boys were hanging out in front of the Helmar Social Club on East 107th Street. Rao had been tasked by Dutch to get rid of Vincent Coll, but Coll had gotten wind of the hit and made an attempt at a preemptive strike. It was a hot day, and the streets were filled with kids playing when Coll rolled up in a big sedan, and he and his boys opened up on Rao and his boys with shotguns and Tommy guns. Joey Rao and the boys hit the dirt just before Coll's bullets flew, not hitting their intended targets, but rather 4 innocent kids who had been playing on the street that day. 3 of the kids survived the attack, but one, Michael Vengali, he didn't. He died of his wounds at the hospital later on. The world stopped. The press jumped on the story, and even then New York Mayor Jimmy Walker got into the fray by dubbing Coll a mad dog killer. Coll went into hiding as New York grieved for Michael and his family. A little over 2 months later, on October 4th, 1931, The NYPD's extensive search for Mad Dog Coll came to a successful conclusion. Coll, who had been holed up in a hotel in the Bronx, was taken into custody. He had dyed his hair brown and grown a mustache to attempt to disguise himself, but the cops got Coll banged to rights. During his lineup and booking, he even told officers that he had been out of town in Albany for the past several months and would not say anything more without a lawyer. Coll was indicted by the New York grand jury the very next day. The law was certain that Mad Dog Coll would go down hard for young Michael's murder. The trial took place in December 31st of 1931, and to all it seemed a sure thing. Coll, on the other hand, had different ideas. Using his kidnapping money, Coll hired the biggest hotshot lawyer in New York to defend him. The defense claimed that Coll was out of town and never near the scene of the killings. Coll himself added his own impassioned plea, stating that he would love to personally tear the throat out of the person who killed the boy. Coll further stated that the whole thing had been a fit-up perpetrated by Dutch Schultz and his boys. Coll was charismatic, and his witnesses consistent and believable. Conversely, the prosecution's main witness, George Brecht, was exposed on the witness stand as having a criminal record and a history of mental issues. Brecht was also discovered to have given a very similar testimony in another trial in St. Louis a long while before this. It was a travesty. The judge had no choice but to rule Coll innocent and release the Mad Dog killer back into the world. But the cops were not about to let this rest. One police inspector told Vincent Coll that the cops would arrest him whenever he was seen around town. That promise was soon fulfilled, and the cops nabbed Coll for carrying an illegal gun. Coll was sent back to jail, the arresting officer needling Coll by calling him baby killer. Coll exploded back, "I'm no baby killer." He was soon acquitted. But don't believe for a second that the world was shot of Mad Dog Coll. Dutch Schultz, never a man to forget an indignity, placed a contract out on Coll. Schultz and Oni Madden put it around that $50,000 would go to whoever iced Vincent Coll. As if to show just how serious he was, Dutch Schultz appeared in a Bronx police station, offering a prize to whoever killed Mad Dog Coll. That prize? An all-expenses-paid house in Westchester. The word was out, and so were the guns. The bullets flew freely, and a bunch of Coll's hoods went down for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. But Coll, as always, evaded the hitters. Until February 8th, 1932, that is. The place? London Chemists, the drugstore and lunch counter on West 23rd Street and 8th Avenue in Manhattan. Vincent Coll was using a phone booth at the drugstore to make threats to Oni Madden. Coll was demanding $50,000 or Madden's brother-in-law would be snatched. A friend at the local telephone exchange tipped Madden as to where the call was coming from, and Madden had a crew of hitters converge on the drugstore before you could say Jack Robinson. The hitmen entered the drugstore and motioned for everybody to stay calm. The hitter pulled his Tommy gun out from under his coat, told the clerk to keep cool now, and unloaded on Coll through the door of the phone booth. They then ran for their car and took off up 8th Avenue. A nearby beat cop commandeered a taxi cab and gave chase, but the killers soon shook the tail. The coroner pulled 15 .45 caliber slugs from the cold dead body of Mad Dog Coll. Many more passed right through him and into the phone booth himself, and thus ended the life of a Mad Dog killer, a baby killer, and a scumbag named Vincent Coll. If you want to visit Vincent Coll today, he's buried in St. Raymond's Cemetery in the Bronx, New York, with his brother Peter. And of course, you may want to piss on his baby-killing punk's grave, and I completely understand, but I don't advocate desecrating anyone's grave. Anyway, Dutch Schultz did it even better than anyone else ever could. The Dutchman paid his respects to his former protege by sending a floral wreath to Coll's graveside. The ribbon on the wreath bore the simple but clear message, "From the boys." Here endeth the tale of Vincent Coll. Mad Dog Coll, a remorseless thief, kidnapper, murderer, and baby killer. Coll was only 23 years old when he died. Imagine causing so much pain, so much upset and turmoil in 23 short years. Crime is not glamorous, and it's not a way out. Unless you want to go out in a box. This case is closed. Until next time, I'm Chris Kelvin in the Museum of Crime for the Articulate Beast.